Hello, this is John Feuerhelm with Precision Tool Distributors, and I'm just taking a quick look at the differences between the scan output from the new Zeiss GOM Scan-1 and a typical low-end commercial, or excuse me, consumer type scanner that you might find at the local electronics store. So I grabbed this small plaster bust right here. And you can see it's a pretty good sized bust. It's probably about 125, 150 millimeters tall, about 5 or 6 inches. And I liked it because it had some nice detail. It's not a high quality plaster casting, so we can see lots of marks from the tools that were used by the artist to create this. We can see that there's some porosities, like here at the tip of the nose. And over here, we can again see on the side of the face some lines and marks from the tools that were used. And then over here in the eye, there's a small defect. I want to point out up here on the forehead, there's also a small defect, all on the model itself from the casting process. So I'm going to flip over to the Zeiss Reverse Engineering software, where I went ahead and used the Zeiss GOM Scan-1 with a 100 millimeter lens to take this initial scan, as well as using a lower end consumer type scanner. So first, let's take a quick look at the consumer scan. And we can see as typical, not bad. We can definitely see the shapes of the model itself, not a lot of detail. Due to the limitations of the consumer scanner software, I was not able to stitch together scans from multiple views, so I had to take all of these from a single view. And again, not bad. I'm going to go ahead and turn that off, and then we'll take a look at the scan from the Zeiss GOM Scan-1. And of course, you can immediately see that this is an amazing high detail, high resolution scan. If we zoom in, we can see there's some of the porosities that we saw in the original casting there at the tip of the nose. We can zoom in and actually see the tool marks from the sculptor as they were creating this, as well as some porosities that existed. In fact, you can see here where they tried to post repair the model, so there's a little porosity, and then they came back with a file real quick to try and clean that up, and it created a false small flat spot there. We can also see this sort of defect up on the forehead that we were talking about earlier. I'm going to flip back to the photographs. And once again, you can see all of those details that I was talking about. There's the little forehead defect. There's the little defects in the eye area. There's some of the defects on the nose. Also notice the depth of the nostril and some of what's going on in the lips right there. Now we'll flip back over to the Zeiss Reverse Engineering software. And you see that we do lose a little bit of the sharpness at the bottom of the mouth area. So we can pop over here. Of course, I'm trying to rotate this photograph. So it's not too bad, but again, as we might expect, as we start getting into some of the deeper, sharper recesses, scanner isn't quite able to get in there. But certainly all the exterior surfaces, the macro surfaces, looking really good. There we are behind the ears, looking pretty clean. And we'll come back around to this side. You see that small little line on the side of the face. And if you remember, when we looked here, we can see that same line on the side of the face. So picking up a lot of really nice details. Before I finish here, I'm going to go ahead and overlay the low quality scan so we can see the actual difference here. So again, the low quality scan, is pretty reasonably accurate. It just lacked detail. You can see where it kind of moves above and below the actual Zeiss scan. So once again, we have low quality scan, consumer level scan, as I would call it, typical scanning unit in a couple $1,000 range. And then we can take a look at the Zeiss GOM Scan-1 scan, much, much more detail. And it is worth mentioning again, this is the the 200 millimeter lens. There is a 100 millimeter lens, which actually has twice as much detail, though it can only handle smaller objects. And then there is a 400 millimeter lens, which can handle larger objects, but at a little less detail. And since the way the Zeiss system works with the targets, dots, you can actually use multiple systems in a single scan and combine high and low resolution areas depending on what we're trying to capture. Anyways, that was a quick look at the results of scanning a model with the Zeiss GOM Scan-1. This has been John Feuerhelm with Precision Tool Distributors.